I have returned from my vacation during which I saw the dentist. Damn, I look good. SIMBIB. Yeah. Hello folks, welcome to Stuff I Make Because I'm Bored. My name's Sin and I will be your host, and before we begin, I want to talk about a time that I almost died. Again. So a while ago, when I was living in my previous apartment, I was running through some story ideas in my head while I was lying in bed when I heard some people walking around outside of my apartment, and I had the sudden realization that I'd forgotten to lock my front door. Now, normally this isn't an issue. My building was fob protected and I was on the top floor, so the only people inside my building could be my neighbors. So I just keep laying there imagining scenarios to torture my blurbos in my head until I hear the sound of my door opening and I freeze. I try and rationalize, it's probably my neighbor going into their house. And then I hear footsteps, heavy, thudding, unmistakably inside my apartment, footsteps. My breath quickens and my heart is racing and I hear the footsteps approach my bedroom door, so I squeeze my eyes shut, completely terrified. My whole body seizes as I feel somebody reach towards me and loom over me, standing there. I force myself to open my eyes slightly and I see this huge, hulking figure bowing down over me and rattle its disgusting breath into my ear. I try to scream, but I can't make a sound and my body won't move. And then I wake up. That was my first experience with sleep paralysis. That's right, today's video is all about dreams. I tricked you, though you probably guessed it based on the title of the video. How did that story make you feel? Were you scared for my life? Did all the horrifying scenarios of what could possibly have happened to me flash through your head? Were you wondering how the hell I got out of that one? Are you sitting there thinking like, well, what the fuck? Why'd you tell the story like that if it was a dream? I was so worried. Why'd you say it like it was real? Because that was the point. I genuinely thought I was going to die. I've never been so scared in my own home. My body not moving when I was screaming at it to move, the sound and the feeling of that thing looming over me. It was visceral and terrifying. The reason I tell the story like that is to make you, the listener, feel the same things that I was feeling while I was having the dream. Let me tell you the story in a different way. A while ago, I was living in my old apartment and I had sleep paralysis one night. I thought someone had come into my apartment, walked over to my bed, and just was standing there staring at me. It was scary. I was scared. How did that make you feel in comparison? Like nothing, right? One of the most viscerally terrifying things that has ever happened to me, and you felt nothing. It was just a dream. Who cares? Maybe it's my theatrical self talking here, but there are no stories that are more fun to tell than dreams. I often hear people say that dreams are boring, they make no sense, why even care about them? Because that is the fun part about dreams, and dreaming in general.
Lion. Lion, how did you learn to drive you a van? You can't even... You can't bring me my...
When you tell someone a dream, you have to make it a show. You have to make the listener care. I had a dream once when I was walking through shipping containers on a train. The thing seemed to go on forever. The containers were all akimbo, each one at weird angles from the previous one, with stuff thrown around like the whole train had been derailed. The containers were massive, like 3 meters tall and long, filled with crates and boxes piled up in messy towers. It was so quiet, and I felt so listless. I had no reason to be there, but I was consumed with this feeling of being lost and alone. The front and the backs of the containers were open, so I was using them to walk through from one to the next. After a couple of them, I ended up stepping outside of the train and I discovered the whole train was underwater. Everywhere I looked, as far as I could see, there was water. Not the dark depths of the ocean, though. It was shallow, maybe 10 or 20 meters deep, and the bottom was just this soft white sand laid out in soft, endless rolling dunes. The train stretched out in front of me, and when I turned around I saw that it was stretching on forever that way as well. I looked up at the surface, where a gentle breeze was breaking up the water, creating these beautiful, shifting columns of light that beamed down at the train and painted this whole scene with patchy lines. And I just remember this feeling of immense serenity and calm and solitude. I still think about that dream sometimes. The image of the train stretching out and all the containers strewn about in an endless line. One day I hope I can paint it as clearly as I can see it in my head. Now, these two dreams are about as different as two dreams can be, and I went about telling them to you in two different ways. For the first, I hadn't made it explicitly clear that I was dreaming, which creates this genuine feeling of distress and fear for someone when I tell them that someone has broken into my apartment. For the second, I started out by saying it was a dream. This way, you're already primed for some nonsensical events, the setting doesn't have to make sense, and you're probably sitting there wondering why I even brought it up at all. But for both retellings, my goal is the same, to make the listener feel something. Maybe it's to fear for my safety, or maybe it's to share in this feeling of floating alone, lost in an empty sea with no direction. And though the second dream is very boring in comparison, I still aim to make the dream interesting by invoking strong imagery in the mind of the listener. Even if I don't fully remember the dream, I try to share why it's stuck with me anyway, why it's important to me. I have also had dreams where I was able to fly. Several dreams like that even, and in each I could fly for different reasons, even in different ways. Like, one time I could fly by flapping my arms, and I was trying to fly from building to building, except I don't think I was fully convinced that I was dreaming, so I couldn't really fly, and as I kept flapping my arms, I was slowly sinking down and down and down and losing height, and there were people walking around on the sidewalks, and they just looked at me like I was so stupid, and I felt so incredibly embarrassed. And another time, I could fly like Superman, and I was just touring the world, which for some reason had like Minecraft landscapes? At one point in the dream, I even superhero pose landed after rocketing down to Earth and just blindly convincing myself, I'm dreaming, I'm dreaming, I'm dreaming, this is fine, I'm dreaming, I can't get hurt, I'm dreaming. It was so satisfying. Honestly, flying works best when I've really convinced myself it's a dream and can't actually get hurt. It's the same with nightmares. Many nightmares are a lot less scary when you're awake and you kind of realize how silly your nightmare actually was, but still, you can work the angle and enhance the hilarity of a dream by emphasizing that. When I was younger, I had a recurring nightmare of this enormous hexagonal room. It's pitch black inside, save for an enormous circular tank in the center of the room, filled floor to ceiling with this dark green liquid that's casting the entire room in a creepy, eerie green glow. Along every wall of the room, there's a toilet. Dead center of the wall, I flushed the first toilet. And suddenly, I see that inside the tank, there's the body of a man. Flushing the toilet broke off one of his limbs and flushed it down into the depths below the tank, below the floor. The figure starts shaking, and I am filled with this urge, this need to keep flushing toilets. So I walk around the room, flushing one by one by one. And one by one by one, limbs break off this figure, and it is contorting and screaming, but I don't stop. I keep fucking flushing until I flush the final toilet and the tank glass shatters, flooding the room with the green liquid. The limbless, headless torso spills onto the floor at my feet, and it squirms and writhes, righting itself onto the stumps of its legs, and it starts ambling towards me, shaking. Like in Monty Python. I have no idea why I even had this nightmare, let alone why I had it several times. And not one time did I think to stop flushing the toilets. I was terrified at the time, but this dream is inherently stupid. And that's what makes it hilarious. Anyway, in conclusion, dreams are not boring. Dreams are nonsensical nonsense, and I love them. How do you feel about dreams? Have you ever had a dream with vivid imagery that sticks with you? Have you ever dreamed about toilets that you can't seem to stop flushing? I'd love to hear about it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye! Simbib, stuff I make because I'm bored. I've heard that dreams are your mind's way of, processing your memories. What on earth was I processing that required flushing all those toilets?